things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay. And who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare. So settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
Yeah.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the morning grind. I'm Heath. I'll be your host. Welcome to my home. Welcome to the office. Welcome to the morning grind. I hope everybody's doing well. You know, I was wondering how long it was going to take somebody to post something or call me out yesterday because, and it didn't happen live. I did the entire show yesterday thinking that it was Sunday. Mike Hansford commented later. I guess he was watching on a replay, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I forget what he said, but something about, well, good thing that's only Saturday or something." So yeah, I woke up yesterday, was working completely under the assumption. I guess Thanksgiving got me screwed up. I was working under the complete assumption that yesterday was Sunday, and that's why we were doing like a kind of potpourri episode. I was like, "Well, it's a perfect day for it." Anyway. Only to realize after the show that, oh, football is today, the college football. That makes it Saturday. So I gained an extra day in my weekend, and that's okay. Because yesterday, I did actually watch the Alabama-Auburn game yesterday. I have not watched basically any football this season. But I did watch the Alabama-Auburn game yesterday, went out to a local bar, watched that with some people, and had a fantastic time. It was a lot of fun. That was basically the whole first football game I've watched this season. And it was a good one. So, Yes, yesterday was Saturday. Today is Sunday. So I have one more day in this weekend to get a whole bunch of stuff done. So, so Mike called me out on that. Good morning, Stray. Good morning, Stray. Good morning, Robert. Good morning. Good morning, Sable. Good morning, Milton Knowles, the Insane Witch King. Well, here's to you, Insane Witch King. Everybody needs to become this monster. The old ones say so. Zero the Blade says, morning, just heard that Lorcana prices are crashing. Wassy Plays covered it 10 minutes ago. I don't know anything about that. I actually don't know anything about Lorcana. What exactly it is as far as the game goes, I have very little knowledge of that. We're going to be talking about this lawsuit that's going on between Upper Deck that involves Lorcana and seeing what ramifications it could potentially have on things that we've been talking about, like the Orc and Elf license, because a friend of mine sent me this information about this lawsuit. And so we're to be saying that it potentially has ramifications on things on like open source licensing, because it has to do with what can be copyrighted mechanics versus the expression of mechanics and so forth. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at. Good morning, James. Good morning. Yes, double Sunday. Good morning, John. Good morning. Oh, Sable Phoenix says, over the weekend, I gave my second copy of Goodnight Sword to a couple of friends with 2 little kids and a third on the way. She said she saw Goodnight Moon and it was lame, but she said that Goodnight Sword was awesome and their little boy and girl loved it. Yes, read it right in the restaurant. You're a winner. Excellent, excellent. Thank you. I am. That makes me feel so fantastic. Yes, Goodnight Sword. If Goodnight Sword is lame, if Goodnight Moon is lame, the Goodnight Sword is the antidote to that. Who doesn't want to read Goodnight Sword? Well, okay. Well, thank you, Milton. All right. Let's see here. So our main topic is going to be the discussion of the Lorcana lawsuit. But also, let's see right here. Tuesday. Don't forget, Tuesday, Doug and I on the Table Talk channel are going to be discussing Napoleon. I got some notes in from some other people as well. Let's see. My uncle has sent me some notes. I've got notes from my friend who I went to watch the show, the movie with last. So whatever day that was. So that would have been actually Friday night. Napoleon discussion. Come by. Hit the link there and notify me. So that's going to be Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. We would love to have you. We're going to go deep. I got a lot to say about this. I told her I'd let you know I have a great kids book. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if you want to see it. I don't know if you want to see it. How many subscribers do we have over there on Table Talk now? 490. Wait, hold on. Let me refresh. This might be an old page. Have we hit 500? Yeah, 508. Oh, we now have over 500 subscribers on the Table Talk channel. Okay, excellent. So 508 subscribers. If you're coming in new, we're establishing Table Talk as its own brand here on YouTube. And so we now actually have crossed the 500 subscriber threshold on Table Talk. That is fantastic. So that is wonderful. So 508, I guess that happened last night. So here we are. Oh, James says, Candace still wants to see Napoleon despite all the reactions. We're hitting the theater this evening. Well, I'll be interested to know what you think of it then in the comments on Tuesday night. I would say go in with low expectations. So 500 subscribers over there. 500. No, that says 509. Somebody just come in and hit the link. So 509 subscribers. All right. So that's a big milestone. So here's to everybody who's been subscribing to Table Talk and been a huge part of the Table Talk journey. I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a toast right here. Here's to everybody who's been a part of Table Talk and that whole journey. 500 subscribers. This is a celebration. I guess onward and upward to 1,000. Maybe we can get to 1,000 from there. The cultists. How are we doing on the cultists? 1.28, 1,280 subscribers over there on the cultist channel. And like I said, we're going to be hitting that hard. 500. Everybody's having a party. Congrats on 5. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I like the complete party time right here. James says, Ridley Scott makes two kinds of movies, generic defining masterpieces and the most disappointing thing you've ever seen. Napoleon seems to be the latter. Yeah, you know, I was talking about that. Apparently, I'm a little bit less familiar with all of Ridley Scott's cinematography than I could be. Because I was like, for some reason, we're like looking up, okay, now what are all the Ridley Scott films? And although some of my favorite films are Ridley Scott films, there was apparently a lot that I just didn't even know existed. And so, yeah, so apparently it is a mixed bag. He can do absolutely incredible stuff. I don't understand what he was thinking with Napoleon. Stray has gifted a membership. Jason got it. Jason got the membership. Jason96 was gifted a membership by Stray Kismet. So congratulations, Jason. Welcome. And thank you so much, Stray. Thank you so much. Stray has gifted a membership, and Jason has got it. And so, hey, if you want to take a look at the Trial of St. Gabriel, if you're a channel member, I posted under the community tab. So that means, Jason, you should be able to get it now. A complete copy of the short story Trial of St. Gabriel. Look at the community tab. There is a post to the channel members that gives you access to it. There's a post to everybody who's subscribed that gives you access to the preview of it, but not but those people who are members of the channel will have access to the entire thing. So we are still plugging away on the cultists. Let's see how many views. Let's see. We got 4,800 views on the Join Our Cult trailer. That's the in-universe advertisement. We now have 3,300 views on the cultist trailer. But we need more views on the episodes. Okay, so there are a lot of people who are watching. We got 3,300 views on the trailer. This is my show. This is my web show. If you're just coming in, this is my mockumentary comedy web show. So we got 3,300 views on the trailer, but we only have 182 views on the first episode. So we need people who have been watching these, the in-universe ad and then the trailer to come over here and actually watch the show. So, all right. So that's going to be the next kind of deal we got to do. Hey, good morning, Keith. Good morning. Okay, let's get into that. We'll get into that in just a second. So, yes. And so we're going to have to launch the trail. We're going to be launching the Trial of St. Gabriel this week. My proof is on the way. And we will take a look at the Trial of St. Gabriel proof as soon as it shows up, and probably maybe even then launch the campaign the same day. So the proof is coming in. I really wanted to see the proof. Running out of Time is a Christmas Story. All right. So the Trial of St. Gabriel is coming. That's my dark story of the Christmas Massacre. And this is my dark Cthulhu comedy. It's not, the comedy isn't really all that dark. All right, let's go over here and start our sacraments for the day. Let me bring up. Oh, I have to. Okay, here we go. So now let's take a look at The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. There's supposed to be a sequel to Gladiator? I didn't hear that. Okay. First of all, let's do our sip. 2 deep breaths, everyone. Then complete exhales. And then take a sip of your favorite beverage this morning. So here we go. And sip. All right, so here we go. The War of Art. We covered this one yesterday because I believe we had a really short one, yes, and then we covered this passage as well. All right, so the portrait of an artist from The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Portrait of the artist. In the end, we arrive at a kind of model where the artist's world of the artist's world. In the end, we arrive at a kind of model of the artist's world, and that model is that there exists other higher planes of reality about which we can prove nothing, but from which arise our lives, our work, and our art. These spheres are trying to communicate with ours. When Blake said eternity is in love with the creations of time, he was referring to those planes of pure potential. Those are which are timeless, placeless, spaceless, but which long to bring their visions into being in this time-bound, space-defined world. The artist is the servant of that intention, those angels, that muse. The enemy of the artist is the small-time ego, which begets resistance, which is the dragon that guards the gold. That's why an artist must be a warrior, and like all warriors, artists over time acquire modesty and humility. They may, some of them, conduct themselves flamboyantly in public, but alone with the work, they are chaste and humble. They know they are not the source of the creations they bring into being. They only facilitate, they carry. They are the willing and skilled instruments of the gods and goddesses they serve. Stray says, breathe and sip. It's a milestone for me being your AI. Breathe and sip. I have not seen The Last Duel. I didn't realize that was a Ridley Scott movie. And The Last Duel was kind of briefly on my radar, but then had dropped off. But when I was looking up Ridley Scott films, The Last Duel was there. I might have gone to see it had I known that, but I didn't actually even know it was Ridley Scott. So I don't know. G.I. Jane was disappointing. G.I. Jane, Hannibal, Prometheus, Alien Covenant. John says, Gladiator 2, Roman Bugaloo. It's the weekend at Maximus's. Only possible in, wait for it, the Roman fucking Empire. James says The Last Duel was roundly ignored by most people. All right, let's go over here and let's start the main topic this morning. So the main topic is this Upper Deck lawsuit that a friend who often shows up here in the comments told me about and said that we should probably check out because he said that it has relevance to our ideas of licensing and everything that's going on here. And this is, so we got this is the article that I was reading, and I was really looking for something that where I could get the actual court filings, but I didn't find that. But nonetheless, let's take a look at this, I guess, blog post here. This is on WDW News Today, the worldwide leader in Disney parks news. And so a lot of this is actually going to rely on Paul Lesko's work. And so Paul Lesko over here, plaintiff's litigator, author of Gastric Bypass, writer of Law of Cards, Hot Chocolate Addict, tweets are not legal advice. So he is a lawyer who has been following this, and he's got, there were a bunch of tweets, like a tweet thread where he laid out, down here someplace, I guess, what was going on with this lawsuit. And I did tweet to him and say that we were live right now talking about this because this relies so heavily on his work. Good morning, Moonswan. Good morning. So this says Upper Deck alleges copyright infringement with Disney Lorcana lawsuit after Ravensburger's motion to dismiss. So this is from August 1st, 2023. After Ravensburger filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit Upper Deck filed against them regarding Disney Lorcana. So, okay, wait a minute. Okay, so this is what we're talking about right here, because I was trying to understand. I wanted to be sure Ravensburger was not a person, but Ravensburger is games. That's a company, right? Yeah, Lorcana right here. Okay. So, all right. So Lorcana, so that's a person. I mean, excuse me, that's a company. So after Ravensburger filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, Upper Deck filed against them regarding Disney Lorcana. Upper Deck amended their complaint to include multiple changes, including claims. My God, websites today. Including claims of copyright infringement. Good morning, Tomocrat. Good morning. Upper Deck is a private company known for producing trading cards. The company is filing a suit against Ravensburger and Ryan Miller, former Upper Deck contractor and current Ravensburger Lorcana designer. So Ryan Miller is former Upper Deck contractor and current Ravensburger Lorcana designer for stealing and copying Upper Deck's original game, which Ravensburger repackaged and marketed as Lorcana. That's what it says. So we're talking about the theft of a game here for stealing and copying Upper Deck's original game, which Ravensburger repackaged and marketed as Lorcana. So this is, if we're talking about, so I guess the analogy here is that if we're talking about taking game mechanics, and if we say that game mechanics cannot be copyrighted, which is what we've been saying a lot over here, here we have a situation where we got this card game has taken the game, they say stealing, and copied it and repackaged it and marketed it as something else. So Miller worked for Upper Deck on Rush of Ichor, a game that remains in development. He ultimately left Upper Deck to work with Ravensburger. Upper Deck stated in their original filing that Ravensburger acted in concert with Miller during much of the time relevant to this complaint, resulting in a breach of Miller's California contracts. So this is what Paul says on Twitter or X. We have a Lorcana update. Upper Deck filed an amended complaint in response to Ravensburger Miller's motion to dismiss. So there was an original complaint made, motion to dismiss, amended complaint filed. I'll do a deep dive in a bit, but the main difference is that Upper Deck, that's UD, that's Upper Deck, added 10 paragraphs explaining in detail all of the Ravensburger Miller contacts with California. Amended complaint for breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, inducing breach of written contract, intentional interference with prospective economic relations, copyright infringement, conversion, and unfair witness practices, demand for jury trial. Okay, so attorney Paul Lesko has been chronicling the lawsuit and noted the major changes Upper Deck made to the complaint this week. The changes address several of Ravensburger and Miller's points in their motion to dismiss, including a claim of lack of jurisdiction. Now, I think that to us, the lack of jurisdiction claim will be the least interesting as far as the different things that we've talked about regarding the Orc and Elf license and the OGL, etc. I.e. that the suits shouldn't go forward in California because Ravensburger's North American division and Miller are based in Washington. Okay, so Upper Deck did this because the defendants moved to dismiss the case for lack of jurisdiction, basically saying we don't have sufficient contacts in California for the case to proceed there since we're both from the state of Washington. And basically, here are the new paragraphs. Well, actually, I'm going to skip by that one because, like I said, I think the jurisdictional thing is the least relevant to the kinds of things that we are talking about. Upper Deck has added several paragraphs detailing Ravensburger and Miller's California contracts to prove the jurisdiction is correct. Upper Deck references multiple trips Miller made to California regarding Rush of Ichor or Disney Lorcana. They also cite Disney being a California company and the game being announced at a California trade show. Okay. So moving on from the jurisdictional arguments, Another change in the new complaint is Upper Deck's focus of Ravensburger Miller from allegedly stealing the idea of Rush of Ichor in the first complaint to the creative, expressive features of the Rush of Ichor in the amended complaint. Now, yes, this can potentially be relevant, I think. So it says another change is that in the original one, it talked about stealing the idea of the Rush of Ichor. Okay, didn't mean to click that. In the first complaint, to now the creative expressions and features of the Rush of Ichor. So that is a big change, and it does go at exactly the kinds of things that we're talking about when we're talking about licensing things with the open licenses and stuff. Can you steal the idea of a game? Well, maybe not. And I think many of us might say, well, no, you can't steal the idea of a game because things like mechanics aren't copyrightable anyway. So if you have a cool idea for a game, somebody else can definitely take that idea. But what you can protect is the creative and expressive features of that game. So now in the amended complaints, that is also to me kind of a big deal here, in that originally when it was filed, this Upper Deck, so this is Upper Deck, yeah, the Upper Deck had said, well, we're stealing some kind of idea. I think most of us who had been following the OGL and stuff would not have put that kind of language in the original complaint, right? And instead, now they have adjusted to probably the kinds of things that you and I would talk about, the creative and expressive features of that game. Now, you could definitely take that from somebody. Okay, so what is this right here? So, I believe on the left is the original, and then on the right is the amended. So let's see. On the left, 32. While the game did not provide many details when first announced in 2022, or in or around April 2000. While the game did not provide many details when first announced in 2022, or in around April 2023, Upper Deck was able to inspect Lorcana's publicly posted rules and determined Lorcana and Rush of Ichor were nearly identical, as discussed further below. The features in Lorcana were in fact novel and proprietary to Rush of Ichor, and their replication into Lorcana can only be the product of Miller's theft of Upper Deck's intellectual property and other proprietary concepts. Okay, so let's look over here at 42. While the game did not provide many details when first announced in 2022, in or around April 2023, Upper Deck was able to inspect Lorcana's publicly posted rules and determined Lorcana and Rush of Ichor were nearly identical, as discussed further below. Several creative, expressive features in Lorcana were novel and proprietary to Rush of Ichor, and their replication into Lorcana can only be the product of Miller's theft. So this says the features in Lorcana were in fact novel and proprietary to Rush of Ichor. And this says specifically over here, several creative, expressive features in Lorcana were novel and proprietary. Okay, so that's clarifying that, I think. Inner Light says, the main thing I've gotten out of this is that Upper Deck is making original games, so I'm checking them out. Well, maybe that's a win for them. This seems silly, not to us, not to any of us here. This seems silly, but it's legally important because copyrights cannot cover ideas, but it can cover the expression of ideas. Ravensburger initially argued that all that was allegedly stolen was ideas. This is Upper Deck trying to point out more concrete examples. James says they shifted from a defensive tone to an offensive tone. It's a good shift for prosecution. No idea how it'll fare. Upper Deck also changed the complaint from focusing on ideas, which cannot technically be covered by copyright. This sentence, the features in Lorcana were in fact novel and proprietary to Rush of Ichor, and their replication into Lorcana can only be the product of Miller's theft of Upper Deck's intellectual property and other proprietary concepts has become this sentence, specifically several creative expressive features. Several creative expressive features in Lorcana were novel and proprietary to Rush of Icor, and their replication in Lorcana can only be the product of Miller's theft. Upper Deck responded to Ravensburger and Miller's claim that the designer was not a fiduciary because he was an independent consultant, stating he was the lead designer of the game. No, the Upper Deck responded to Ravensburger and Miller's claim that the designer was not a fiduciary because he was an independent consultant. Upper Deck stated that he was the lead designer for the game. And also, this is big, Upper Deck brings copyright infringement claims against Ravensburger and Miller. In between filing the case and now, Upper Deck received 2 copyright registrations, and it provides a side-by-side analysis of how Lorcana allegedly infringes on them. Okay, let's take a look at that. Dread, I don't know this. Wow, their original game, Dread Draw, had some awesome art. Might buy it just for the art. Oh, here we go. Okay, so what does this say? 6th cause of action, copyright infringement against defendants Miller and Ravensburger. 113. Upper Deck realleges and incorporates by reference each and every allegation of this complaint as though fully set forth herein. 114. Upper Deck is registered and is the owner of 2 copyrights. The first copyright registration number, blah, 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 is the working draft of the Rush of Icor game at the time that Miller terminated his relationship with Upper Deck, referred to herein as Game Design 2002. The second copyright registration is this an immediate conversation? Number such and such is the more current 2023 version of working draft that the Rush of Icor game that has further evolved and developed since Miller's departure, referred to herein as Game Design 2023. Collectively, the 2 copyrights will be called Game Designs. 115. Miller has access to expressions and creative choices. So here's that expressions and creative choices depicting in the Game Designs through his work for Upper Deck under the 2 contracts. He helped to create these works on a work for hire basis. While the 2023 version of the Game Design post-dates Miller's employment, the relevant information contained therein was in other drafts and works that he had access to during his contractual tenure with Upper Deck. Ravensburger, though hiring and having Michael design his game, its game has the same access. 116. Many aspects of the Lorcana game are substantially similar or virtually identical to protected aspects of the game mechanics. While the entire Lorcana product is not yet publicly available, the plaintiff anticipates uncovering further instances of copying at this time. Upper Deck identifies several examples of copying of protected expressions between the Game Designs and the Lorcana game below. So here's A. Substantially similar or near identical creatures champions, Rush of Icor, and characters Lorcana. So, for example, Rush of Icor creature champions says elusive. This creature can only be attacked by other elusive creatures. Whereas the Lorcana character says evasive. Only characters with evasive can challenge, i.e. attack, this character. Okay, support says in Rush of Icor, support. Target other friendly champion gets plus X strength until the beginning of your next turn. X is equal to this champion's strength. Support. Whenever this character quests, you may add their strength to another character's strength this turn. What do we think about this? Does Upper Deck have a case here? I'd be very interested to know what the community thinks. Rush of Icor. So James says, Magic the Gathering has an identical mechanic called Shadow. Only creatures with Shadow can block other creatures with Shadow. Zero the Blade says, if that's the case, then Legend of Runeterra by Riot Games can be sued. James says, if Upper Deck wins this, they're going to open themselves up to Hasbro lawsuits. Because you think that because this is so close to like the shadow thing in Magic the Gathering, if Upper Deck wins this against Lorcana, then Hasbro will have a suit for them over Magic. Moonswan says, yeah, it would. Robert says, I thought game mechanics couldn't be copyrighted. Well, that is the issue, right? So that's the issue. So let's continue right here. So that's the issue. They're not trying to copyright mechanics here. They've moved to creative expressions. They're saying that this creative expression right here in Rush of Icor, or this creative expression right here in Lorcana, violates the copyright of Rush of Icor. Because remember, they're amended. Originally, they were talking about the protection of ideas, which is something that we can't do. So they amended it, saying that their creative expressions are being violated, which is exactly, see, this is exactly the kinds of things that the open license, when people are going, you don't need an open license. You don't need an open license. Just rewrite the SRD. Remember when people were posting in my comment section during the whole SRD debacle, the OGL debacle? Oh, don't worry, you can't copyright game mechanics anyway. All you have to do is just go rewrite the SRD, man. That's all you have to do. Just rewrite the SRD. They can't copyright a mechanic. Just rewrite the SRD and use that. That's what people were saying in my comment section. People who had no idea what they were talking about were saying that in my comment section way back in last January and February. Well, here is an exact example of why that doesn't work. So this one right here. So when it says elusive, this creature can only be attacked by other elusive creatures. That is an expression of a game mechanic. Elusive, that is an expression of a game mechanic. It is absolutely copyrightable. Somebody else wants to use the same mechanic. And they write evasive. Only characters with evasive can challenge, i.e. attack this character. Is the Lorcana expression of that mechanic sufficiently different that it doesn't violate Rush of Icor's copyright? Rush of Icor is not an open source game, an open game. There's no open gaming license here. So now a court is having to decide whether or not this language over here that Lorcana has written is a sufficiently different explanation of the same mechanic that it does or does not violate Rush of Icor's copyright. And that's exactly what we did not want to have happen for anyone who is working in an open gaming environment. That was the genius of Ryan Dancy, right? That was the genius of Ryan Dancy, because he knew. So when he was saying, well, my game mechanics for Dungeons and Dragons can't be copyrighted. So what do I do? Well, yes, everybody could, all these other publishers, if they want to try to make Dungeons and Dragons compatible things, could try to rewrite all of the rules so that they're indicating the same mechanics, but they're different in language. And then they're going to have to go, now, is this different enough that Wizards of the Coast is not going to sue us? Because it was Wizards of the Coast. And then as a court, how is a court going to adjudicate the differences in the expression of these ideas, right? And now, and nobody wanted to have that. So Ryan Dancy, in the genius move that he made, created the OGL, which said, you know what? You can just use our expressions. Just here's the SRD. It's under the OGL. We're not going to worry about whether or not somebody's language is too close to our language anymore. You can even just use our language directly. Let's get going making games to make sure that this is exactly what does not happen. This is exactly what is supposed to not happen. Inner Light says they're similar mechanics, but not exactly the same. If the same designer were working on different games, they could have come up with similar games for different producers. James says, I don't know that Hasbro would care to sue Upper Deck, but if Upper Deck wins this, I would expect that to be a possibility. So other examples here. Rush of Icor says Defender, FKA Bodyguard. A player's rating champions with Defender must be attacked until there are none left before any raiding champions without defender can be attacked. Okay, so that was defender. A player's raiding champions with defender must be attacked until there are none left before any raiding champions without defender can be attacked. Whereas Lorcana says bodyguard. This character may interplay exerted. An opposing character who challenges one of your characters must choose one with bodyguard if able. Are those two statements, is Lorcana's statement in violation of Icor's copyright? Rush of Icor says, charge or sneak attack. This creature may attack the turn you summon it. Lorcana has rush. This character can challenge, i.e. attack, the turn they're played, i.e. summoned. So Rush of Icor was charge or sneak attack. This creature may attack the turn you summon it. Lorcana is rush. This character can challenge, i.e. attack, the turn they're played, i.e. summoned. Robert says, this could impact the Paizo plan for the Pathfinder clean break from the Wizards SRD. I wonder how different their new game will be. Maybe it could. Inner Light says, I think some of these are completely different. And the fact that we're having this discussion, but the fact that we're having this discussion, I mean, is the problem. This is the kind of thing that can be crippling for trying to do game design. By the way, there's been continued fantastic discussion. Do we post a link to the Ravenkeep Discord server? There's been continued fantastic discussion on the elf. I noticed Robert was talking. I've gotten some more things I want to say to Roll of Law. But there's been some fantastic discussion of that in the Ravenkeep Discord server on Morning Grind. Let me make sure if you're here, please do hit the like button. Please do hit the like button. Let people know that we're here. Get this out to more people. And also come by and join the Ravenkeep Discord server. James says, there was a 2014 lawsuit about this regarding tapping resources in Magic. Wizards wanted to copyright the mechanic, turning a card sideways to produce a game effect, but it was ruled all they could copyright was calling the mechanic tapping. That's why in other games you tack, bow, exhaust, etc. I remember that. So yeah, I know that seems insane. That what you're going to do is you're going to make proprietary to you the idea that rotating a card 90 degrees would change its impact on the game. Wizards lost the case, essentially. Great point. I remember when that was going on. Zero the Blade says, every tabletop game will be affected. Even Digimon uses some of those terms. James says, I would be shocked if Ravensburger's legal team doesn't cite the 2014 tapping case. You can't copyright tapping. Only the term, right? Every other card uses that means of marking usage. So other examples include substantially similar or near identical, unique, and expressive game effects. Rush of Icor. Players must build decks from only 2 colors of cards and no more. Certain loyal cards affect further limit deck building and character selection. Whereas Lorcana says, players must build decks from only 2 colors of cards and no more. Loyal card effects give unique advantages when in the same deck. Rush of Icor says, to score points, raiding champions must exhaust, which is the only time they can be attacked. Lorcana says, to score points, questing characters must exhaust, which is the only time they can be attacked. Rush of Icor says, formidable power of some cards means whenever the champion loses a battle, also destroy the enemy champion. Lorcana has a lose something card with the same effect. When this character is challenged and banished, banish the challenging character. Rush of Ichor says influence zone, expressed as a standalone pseudo discard pile where the players accumulate resources needed to bring cards into play and which remain permanent. Lorcana says inkwell, expressed as a standalone pseudo card pile where the players accumulate resources needed to bring cards into play and which remains permanent. Inner Light says, right, no, that's what this whole thing is about. Remember that the expression of mechanics that is copyrighted. And we're seeing here and there examples that quite a few of them are not the same expression. Some of them are, however. And if it's not exactly the same expression, is it sufficiently different? And it seems like Upper Deck would even be saying in those cases that it's not sufficiently different. Like, is it really enough? Like, is just changing the name enough? Like 2 score points, raiding champions must exhaust, which is the only time they can be attacked. 2 score points, questing characters must exhaust, which is the only time they can be attacked. That's not exactly the same sentence. It's not exactly the same sentence, but it's like 95% the same sentence. You know, players must build decks from only 2 colors of cards and no more. Players must build decks from only 2 colors of cards and no more. That part is identical. Is it enough? Is it different enough? I don't know. I don't want to deal with a court to try to figure all this stuff out. In addition to being directly liable for copyright infringement, Ravensburger is also vicariously liable for Miller's infringement because it had the right and ability to supervise Miller's development of Arcana and had a direct financial interest in creating and selling the game. 18. As a result of the infringements of Upper Deck's work, Upper Deck is entitled to damages available under the Copyright Act. Paul says, interestingly for me, copyright claims cannot be brought in state court. The only way these claims can be added to the case is because Ravensburger Miller moved the case to a federal court. Oof. Upper Deck out-strategized the defendants here. Inner Light says, if the name is changed and the sentence describing the effect is different, even if only rewritten to be structured differently, I would say that is different enough. Moonswan says, if that's the case, Bicycle Cards should sue any card game that draws a card, LOL. Most notable is that Upper Deck has added copyright infringement claims. As Lesko pointed out, copyright claims cannot be brought in state court, where Upper Deck originally filed the lawsuit. But Ravensburger and Miller moved the case to federal court, which allowed Upper Deck to add copyright infringement to their complaint. Okay, so that's an example that we just looked at already. Upper Deck compares the copyrights of Rush of Ichor and Disney Lorcana in charts to show their similarities. Lesko predicts Ravensburger and Miller will file another motion to dismiss with a similar waste of time jurisdictional argument. He also doesn't believe Upper Deck will file a motion for preliminary injunction, which would delay the Disney and Arcana release. For now, it's still scheduled for release at Gen Con and in specialty stores on August 18th. So this is already out. For the latest Disney parks news and info, follow WWD News, okay, on Twitter and so forth. Okay. So what are the ramifications and fallout here? So what are the ways that this goes? Okay, if Upper Deck wins this, now I think it's interesting you're saying that Upper Deck could open themselves up to other to other lawsuits, such as by Hasbro. But here we go. That if that Upper Deck wins and says that, hey, listen, this chunk of text right here is the chunk of text that we find in Lorcana is in violation of our copyright. I don't think, even though we cannot copyright mechanics. I mean, I don't think that the judge can come down and say that mechanics can be copyrighted, but I guess that could be something that happens. I mean, once you're in court, which is what Ryan Dancy and Bob Tarantino were talking about, that there are a lot of different ways that things could go, that you may not necessarily want to really risk having those things happen to you. So if they say that, hey, these mechanics can't be copyrighted, but that Lorcana's descriptions are too close and do violate the copyright of Rush of Icor, then that makes it increasingly dangerous to try to say, well, I'm just going to rewrite the rule system. I'm just going to rewrite the SRD, bro. Right? Because then you're going to have to figure out what exactly is different enough, and what is not different enough that would open you up to a lawsuit. And then I guess you would have this example of a suit that was won where, like, hey, these sentences ended up being in violation of copyright. So that would be strengthening the hold of what copyright is, even if mechanics can't be copyrighted. If Ravensburger Miller wins, then we would still definitely be upholding the idea that mechanics can't be copyrighted. But we are going with a much, I guess it would mean a much more conservative idea of what it means to violate copyright. Even this level of similarity would be fine, which I suppose is good for other people and third parties working in the tabletop industry. That, hey, we can. You really have to do some direct copying in order to be in violation of copyright. I don't see this being something that's going to take down the notion that game mechanics can't be copyrighted, though. Because, so I think that my friend was saying that one thing that could happen is that the court could rule that since game mechanics can't be copyrighted, that all of this is fine. That your expressions are therefore fine, and would take a much more liberal view of that. And that, if that happens, which also strikes me as something that the court would not do, because that seems to do a lot of violence to a lot of intellectual property and value. Like, for instance, and in fact, my friend was talking about this. Like, for instance, here's the 3rd edition PHB. If the court came down and said, listen, this game right here, this Dungeons and Dragons game, is based on mechanics, and you can't copyright mechanics, and therefore also the expression of these mechanics are also out, like they are or free to take. That would all of a sudden mean that a whole bunch of value in copyrights for Wizards' work and the entire gaming industry all of a sudden basically lost all of the value in their games if they don't uphold the copyright to the expressions of the mechanics. And I really don't see I don't see a court doing that, just because that seems like something that does the most amount of violence to our current situation and as far as destruction of value. That would be huge. That would be huge if they ruled something that meant that this whole book right here cannot be copyrighted because mechanics cannot be copyrighted. I mean, I guess they could. You don't want, that's one of those things that's like, gee, what's the percentage chance that a court would do that? I think small, but small still has a risk. And that's what Ryan Dancy was trying to eliminate. Okay, we don't want to have that kind of risk in either direction. Let's just all operate according to a set of rules that he put out. Tomocrat says there's a line from a movie that I always think of with things like this. Everyone has layers. Once you use them, they mess everything up. Inner Light says, I think some of the Lorcana expressions will have to be rewritten. The ones that are exactly the same as the Rush of Icor. But a lot of the other expressions of Lorcana are fine, even if they have the same mechanic, such as Rush of Icor's rules. Upper Deck has a reputation with card game enthusiasts. They lost the Yu-Gi-Oh license decades ago because they admitted to counterfeiting cards to their own product. Oh, interesting. Tomocrat says, Other People's Money. That was the name of the book, movie. Robert says, what's the precedent court case about game mechanics? We need to check what the standard is. I think, see you later, Interlight. Typo was lawyers. Other people's, typo was lawyers. Oh, I'm not sure where that came from. But, so Sable Phoenix says the charge sneak attack mechanic is just haste from Magic the Gathering. Yeah. Charge or sneak attack rush, that is haste, right? So that's the same thing. You can attack or the turn you're played, whether that's charge or sneak attack or rush or haste, right? But actually, I think if I recall, when we were going back and taking a look at all of the OGL stuff, I said years ago, feels like it was years ago. Earlier this year, I think the idea that game mechanics that cannot be copyrighted is something that basically goes back to time immemorial. Like, I think that courts have referenced that, but that I don't think there was a case. I don't think there was a case that specifically said this is the way that it is. I think that Bob Tarantino in his dissertation had just put out, had recorded that and was saying that this idea comes from a long, what's the word I'm looking for? Juridical history, where courts are saying that, but I don't think there was a specific court decision that said that. I think that courts just consistently had said that for a long, long time in their decisions. I think that was it. So I am interested to know how this goes. I'm following Paul Lesko on Twitter. I'll post the link to his. He's the one who's been following this. So if you are on X, he might put out more as things go. I don't follow X. I mean, I'm not on X all that often anymore. But if you are, there we go. And if he posts something that is a follow-up or something to this, if we end up with some type of new ruling or something, then we should probably follow up on it here on the Morning Grind because it's relevant to what we are doing. So he is the one who that blog post referenced a lot, obviously. All right. What else do we need to do? I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting. I think we should totally follow it because it does directly impact so much of the licensing stuff that we are talking about. And we seem to talk about that a lot. So I will see. My friend was saying that he was expecting Ravensburger and Miller to win that case. Even though it seems like because of it seems like there were some shenanigans going on. It does seem like there were some shenanigans. But does it rise to anything actionable? So, and then we'll have to see what type of ramifications that has on the gaming company, on the gaming industry as a whole after that. So that's really fascinating. I want to make sure we hit an hour over here because I've heard that that YouTube likes the hour. So that was just about an hour. But what else is going on? I'm going to sit here. I'm going to turn off the internet here and work this afternoon. I'm trying to eliminate the number of things I've got to do down to 3 things. I've got 3 things written down on an index card. I need to work on the Trial of St. Gabriel, get that launched. Rabivania Scripts, need to get that launched. And then this one right here has to do with the Cultists and its associated game. So there we go. Robert brings this up, says, I see 1879 and 1996 cases that appear relevant. If you have links to those, please put those in the Discord server. I would be interested to know which ones those are. Maybe we should look at them on the grind sometime. Specifically about this. Because like I said, it was brought up, Bob brought up that one danger, the reason that somebody might not want to, and the 2014 tapping case. One reason somebody might not want to challenge it in court if you're a smaller level publisher is that the courts might not necessarily continue with that. They might say that, yes, like Bob was saying, something as simple as checkers can't be copyrighted, those mechanics. but that by the time you're talking about something as complicated as an RPG, you're effectively talking about more like software, and they could decide actually they can. And do you really want that to be something that comes up? So there's a lot of risk once it goes to court. And rather than take on that risk, Ryan Dancy's brilliant solution was to use an open gaming license. And I would really hate to lose all of that. We need a really good one of those. And I think that's just a good way to operate. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. This was fantastic. Once again, I think this was an important part of this discussion. I appreciate everybody who was here and who was in the comments and using the comments. Once again, you make the live stream so much better. And also to everybody who is watching on replay, I also appreciate your being here. Please hit the like button. If there's something that we missed and you're watching on replay, please do leave it in the comments. I read the comments and all of that. So I will see everybody later. I will send everyone I will see everyone later. See you tomorrow. Please be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later, everybody.